Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to begin our program. We'd like to remind you that Candlelight is a solemn ceremony. We ask that you hold your applause, that there be no flash photography once the ceremony begins, and we're asking that everyone please turn off their cell phones. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Flores, and I have had the pleasure of serving as class secretary for the past 4 years. I would like to welcome you to the class of 2013's Candlelight ceremony. Candlelight is a long-held tradition at Hamilton Wenham. It is a solemn gathering that gives students and teachers a chance to reflect on all that they have accomplished over the past 4 years. Throughout the evening, you will hear from a few graduating seniors and a beloved teacher. Each will give you greater insight into the personality of our class. You will likely hear it more than once tonight, but we truly have a great class graduating this year. We are a diverse group with a variety of talents and passions, ranging from academics to athletics to the arts. I think I speak for most of my classmates when I say that we are excited about the opportunities ahead of us and grateful for the time that we have spent together. I want to thank my friends, classmates, and teachers for making my time at the Regional a great 4 years. To the class of 2013, I will miss you all next year and wish each of you the best of luck wherever your future brings you. Thank you. Hi, my name is Colleen Ford, and I am the treasurer of the class of 2013. I want to thank you all for coming here tonight, and I am going to speak briefly on the importance of candlelight and reflection. Tonight, we gather here to reflect on our time spent at Hamilton Wenham. It is important to think about how the past 4 years have truly shaped each of us into the people we have become. I encourage all of you to take a moment at some point in the upcoming days to remember something, whether it be a teacher, a certain subject, or even a fellow classmate that has helped make your time at Hamilton Wenham worthwhile. In my own reflections, I have found that I remember the friendships I formed over the past years and the teachers that inspired me, rather than tangible things such as tests or grades that seemed so important at the time. Hamilton Wenham has provided all of us with unique experiences and a valuable education. Knowing this, we should feel confident to face the challenges that each of our futures will inevitably hold. So cherish the memories from high school and be prepared to take risks and follow your ambitions. In taking the next step towards our gradual independence, President Kennedy reminds us that only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Thank you.
Good evening, administrators, faculty, family, and friends of the class of 2013. My name is Matthew Bogus, and for the past 4 years, I've had the honor of being Vice President of this great class. Over the past 4 years, I have learned that you must seize opportunities when they are present, and be thankful for the chances that you have been given. And although we all must be proud of seizing the opportunities that have presented to us over our high school careers, because if we didn't, we would not be sitting on the stage right now. We also must recognize and thank the numerous people who have helped guide us to this point in our lives, because without them, none of this would be possible. And if there's one thing that I've learned through my 4 years here, is that the people around you have a profound impact on your life. And finally, I'd like to leave you with the wise words of my good friend Brian Nickel. A place is only as good as the people in it, and this place is pretty good. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the ceremony.
Community members, representatives of the school committee, Dr. Harvey, administrators, teachers, parents, and friends, good evening. My name is Danielle Larizio, and I am this year's Candlelight essayist. I would like to offer a wholehearted congratulations to this class of 2013. It's hard to believe that we have finally reached the end of our high school careers. Shutting my locker for the last time on our last day of school has such a finality to it that it made me realize that this school was no longer our own. How much time we have spent in school over our lives is something that just boggles my mind. Most of us started preschool when we were 4 years old. It seemed like forever ago where we were sitting in small classes, playing with Play-Doh, oblivious to a time when school meant having to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that there would be no nap time at lunch to get us through the day. Now we are 17 or 18 years old. After spending 13 years attending school, we have matured and in the process have become a familiar and tight-knit community. And we have been joined along the way by new students from different towns and schools. We have spent more time in school than at home. School became our second home, a home where we spent our mornings and afternoons learning and studying, while our actual houses and the world around us became the places where we implemented the knowledge we just obtained. We will be leaving the school district soon, and I can't help but feel such a range of emotions. How can I possibly put into words my experiences, not to mention saying something about the collective experiences of the class of 2013? Surely it has in many ways, but I just could not figure out how to describe it. Just when I was about to give up hope on discovering what the overall purpose, the overall message of high school was, tragedy struck at the Boston Marathon. And from this I learned that those tragic moments push us beyond what we have learned in school and teach us that not all lessons can be taught in a classroom. On Patriots' Day, near the finish line of the Boston Marathon, our state and country experienced a tumult of emotions, ranging from confusion to sadness to fear, from an act of violence that will mark our hearts and our history forever. What struck me was the outpouring of raw emotion. Frightened accounts of the confusion and destruction that followed from those who were at the marathon. Remorse from those who watched the events unfold on television as I did. And compassion from people who offered a place to stay to those displaced by the chaos. And there was another emotion that I sensed, one that immediately frightened me: anger. People were proclaiming their hatred of and disappointment in the human race for yet again allowing another horrific event to befall our nation. I couldn't help but shirk back from the news. Something wasn't right. Naturally, people wanted to find out why and how this happened. What was the motive? Who did this? What happened in their past to make them hate us? It is a coping mechanism of sorts. After devastating events like this one, we seek an immediate answer to questions that are far more complex than we can ever imagine. Essentially, that is what high school has been about as well. In classes, we isolate situations, events, and problems and attempt to solve them ourselves. We do this by trying to prove a theorem in geometry, or analyzing in English whether or not Huckleberry Finn's opinions towards slavery are changed by his experiences traveling down the Mississippi River. We are tasked with conducting experiments in chemistry that test the bonds of hydrogen molecules, and we evaluate in history whether or not it was a good decision for the United States to invade Northern Korea during the Korean War. This is important work, but at times we build up a false sense of rightness, which is not altogether bad, but it's not terribly realistic. This feeling assures us that if we were ever in a certain situation, we would be able to act accordingly in a way that only leads to one outcome, the right one. And although that does help us exercise our imaginations and our reasoning abilities, it can make us lose sight of the variables and uncertainties of life. There is never a set pattern to how events unfold. Events rarely go according to plan. Just look at John F. Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs invasion, or Sir Alexander Fleming, who discovered that mold left over after one of his failed experiments turned out to be penicillin. Sure, taking risks can have terrible outcomes, but those are moments that teach us what not to do next time around. We see the complexity of the world, and it can be scary at times, but do not forget that humanity is good. We are, as a whole, wonderful, unique, and beautiful people. For each bomber, there were countless marathoners running to Mass General to donate blood after running nearly 26.2 miles. For every madman shooter, there are teachers who sacrifice themselves to protect their students. And for every playground bully, there is a handful of friends willing to sit with a lonely child at lunch. For every so-called bad person, there are at least hundreds that outnumber him or her. In moments like these, I am reminded of how the good in this world far outweighs the evil. At its core, the human race is united in such a way that race, class, ability, and sexuality do not matter. What matters is that we all can see and recognize these differences, but refuse to see them as determinants of friendships, relationships, and attitudes. These aspects make us more diverse, colorful, and frankly, much more interesting. But they should not divide us. So how did this all connect to school? Well, this room is filled with good people. I know it. I've witnessed it. I've been going to school with most of you since I was 5 years old. In that time, I have felt no stronger sense of community. Sure, our class spirit may not be terribly flashy, and at times it seems like we are more different than we are similar. But I can't help reflecting on the hilarious moments we've shared, the sad times we've endured, and the wonderfully pensive moments that have illuminated the potential for goodness in each and every one of us. To know that there are 163 students in our class that are so reliable, intelligent, and compassionate truly is a comfort. After this week, our pathways will diverge, and although I would like to hope that I will see everyone again somewhere down the line, I know that I might not. Time changes people, and now we are about to begin lives that will take us far from the comforts and securities of the Hamilton-Wenham Regional High School. The only thing that I can suggest to my friends and my classmates today is this: do not become cynical, and do not lose faith in the goodness of humanity. Humans are naturally flawed, but our actions, both good and bad, can have lasting impacts on those around us and the society in which we live. Recognition of this creates a happy medium that will not make us cynical, but at the same time will not make us ignorant. Be trusting of others, even though we have reason to be skeptical. Although trying to understand why something has happened has its place, focus on the experiences you are having right now. Pay attention to what is happening in this moment and what you can do to help or bring comfort to yourself and others. Although it's tempting to spend what precious time we have trying to find answers to the complex moral questions that will plague us throughout our lives, we must remember that those people who seek to do terrible things in the world are outliers. Be accepting of the kindness around you and pay that goodness forward. Rather than expect the worst in others and build up barriers, be open to the people around you. Accept love and give love. You may be hurt in the process, but taking that risk is natural and necessary. What we have learned in school will be unquestionably helpful as we enter this new and strange adult world. We will apply our knowledge to everyday situations without even realizing it. We have fostered a keen sense of curiosity that has made us more than ready to lead this country by the time we enter the post-high school world. But first, we must accept that there are not always definitive answers to the questions we ask. We cannot prove that we don't deserve a parking ticket by using the reflexive property from geometry. For each clever comparison we hear, we cannot stop and evaluate its practicality as we learn to do in history. Sometimes we need to accept that life, both its positives and negatives, happens, and that we cannot always stop it. But we can try, and goodness knows that we try. That is what makes this class of 2013 so special. We are a group of attempters, a troop of triers. We have high hopes and high standards and firm positions. We are artists, musicians, mathematicians, engineers, politicians, athletes, advocates, doctors, nurses, researchers, soldiers, and lovers. We have a lifetime ahead of us to decide how we want to make an impact on this world. Dating back to September 11, 2001, we have been aware of the injustices of the world, of the hate that exists, of the pain that persists, but we have also witnessed the acts of kindness that make us realize, hey, we're not so bad after all. It gives me goosebumps just knowing how gifted we all are in our own ways. I know that we will all go on to do incredible things in this world. In closing, the late Robert F. Kennedy once said, "Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy, and daring those ripples, build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." Think about that for a second.
All you need to do is create a ripple. Small acts of kindness are contagious. They spread easily from one person to the next. They build and they build until finally we have a better world. We all have exceptional talents that, when combined, can overpower the evil in this world. Be united and persistent in making decisions that will make this world our own. Thank you.
Congratulations to the graduates, parents, and guests. Tonight, my young friends, let's reflect, shockingly, on critical thinking. Some people think critical thinking is how to win arguments. Others think it's about tricking people, like with the 9 of clubs. Critical thinking really can help you avoid trouble, as in this accident report. I'm a bricklayer by trade. On the day of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a new 6-story building. When I completed my work, I found I had some bricks left over. Rather than carry the bricks down by hand, I decided to lower them in a barrel by using a pulley which was attached to the side of the building at the 6th floor. Securing the rope at ground level, I went up to the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the bricks into it. Then I went down and untied the rope, holding it tightly to ensure the slow descent of the 240 pounds of bricks. You will note in the accident report that I weigh 135 pounds. Due to my surprise of being jerked off the ground so suddenly, I lost my presence of mind and forgot to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded at a rather rapid rate up the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel, which was now proceeding rapidly downward at an equally impressive speed. This explains a fractured skull, minor abrasions, and broken collarbone. Slowed only slightly, I continued my rapid ascent, not stopping until the fingers of my right hand were 2 knuckles deep into the pulley. Fortunately, by this time, I had regained my presence of mind and was able to hold tightly to the rope. At approximately the same time, however, the barrel of bricks hit the ground and the bottom fell out of the barrel. Now devoid of the weight of the bricks, the barrel weighed approximately 50 pounds. I refer you again to my weight. As you might imagine, I began a rapid descent down the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming up. This accounts for the 2 fractured ankles, broken tooth, and severe lacerations of my legs and lower body. The encounter with the barrel seemed to slow me enough to lessen my injuries when I fell into the pile of bricks. Fortunately, only 3 vertebrae were cracked. I'm sorry to report, however, as I lay there on the pile of bricks, in pain, unable to move, watching the empty barrel 6 stories above me, I again lost my composure and presence of mind and let go of the rope. And I lay there watching the empty barrel begin its journey back down. So critical thinking can help you avoid problems. But that's not the main point of critical thinking. It's really about focusing on and evaluating ourselves. It's about reflecting on ourselves. So tonight, I'm going to focus on 3 aspects of this self-reflection: prejudice, humility, and empathy. First, prejudice. Prejudice simply means to prejudge. We all have a hidden brain. It works automatically, and thank goodness. You wouldn't want to be saying every second, "Breathe, breathe!" And it's generally more efficient than our conscious brain. Ask any of these athletes or musicians, and they will tell you that the automatic response based on training is what helps them perform. But the hidden brain has biases. It has prejudices. It stereotypes. Facial recognition in infants helps them survive. Human infants are basically helpless, and they very quickly, in order to survive, have to find out who's going to feed them, who's going to protect them, and who's going to change their diaper. In experiments with 6-month-old infants, they preferred dolls that look like them. This is a survival, just to survive. These preferences for those like us can lead to prejudice for those not like us. And that can cause pain to other people. We all know of racial and gender stereotyping. Malcolm X was told he shouldn't go into law because he was a black person. Women are often paid less for the same jobs as men. Diversity helps reduce our prejudice. Youth students have a variety of interests, such as role-playing games, theater, fashion, flying airplanes, and you have different backgrounds, such as Pakistani, Filipino, Nigerian, or British. Some of you like horses. Some like history. Correction, all like history. Some like golf. Some like Guatemala. Some like engines. Some like Estonia. Some like Model UN. Some like music. Some are quiet. Some are so excited about learning, they feel like they have to stand up to talk in class. Some are shy, and some are sassy. When you go to college, or the military, or work, you get a chance to meet new people, in the process learn more about yourself. Take advantage of that opportunity. It isn't an exaggeration to say that one of the most important goals of the real personal education is discovering our own prejudices. Second, humility. I'm not talking about false or excessive humility. I'm too humble. You have to be confident. We all have different gifts. Each person is unique and can contribute to the world. We need to recognize our gifts and be respectful of others' gifts. We're all part of the fabric of the world. But neither do we want excessive pride or overconfidence. I've noticed disasters in history. Napoleon invading Russia, the Bay of Pigs, overthrowing Mossadegh in Iran. The effects go on for generations of these mistakes. There are many causes for these, but one is pride. The arrogance of Mao Zedong in the Great Leap Forward is breathtaking. One man deciding for hundreds of millions of people what they're going to do led to the starvation of over 30 million people, the largest man-made famine in history. Pride is also personal. I don't know about your pride, but I thought I'd give you a couple examples of mine. Some expressions really get to me. So one of them is, think outside the box. How many of you have heard that expression? Hands up, it's okay. So if we've all heard the expression, think outside the box means the person saying it isn't thinking outside of any box. You're using a cliche. Now, when people say that to me, I just smile, but I'm thinking, you're telling me to think outside the box, but you're not. That's a little prideful on my part. The other one is, it is what it is. Now, when somebody says that to me, I just look at it. But inside, I know what they mean. They mean that we can't change things. I think it'd probably be better if they said that. But inside, I'm thinking, no, really? I can't believe it. All these years, I have always thought that it was what it wasn't. And now you've cleared it up for me. Now, this democracy experiment that we're part of the last couple hundred years, which is really catching on around the world, is built on equality. You're no better than anyone else. The Declaration of Independence says all men, and unfortunately at that time they meant men, we've since added women, all people are created equal. And that's important. So let's think about our accomplishments. Let's just think about it this way. I want you to imagine that you go down to the ocean, and you're going to go swimming in the ocean. And you've been going to the Y, and you've been working out, you feel like, I think I'm okay here. I think this is going to work. And you get in the water and you start swimming. And you feel amazing. Like, wow, those workouts really were, they really helped you. You're going and you think, wow, I'm so strong, I can't believe it. I mean, you're not going at Klobuchar speed, but you're going. So you go a little further, and then you decide to turn around, and when you turn around, you can hardly go. You have to struggle going a few feet, and you're not even sure you're going to be able to get back, because there's been a current under you the whole time, but you didn't notice it. And that's the current of life. That's the way it is in life. We all have currents. So when you think about your accomplishments, your achievements, keep in mind that you've had a favorable current. For starters, you have your parents. You have your teachers. Kind of like that one. And the taxpayers of Hamilton and Wenham. My career has been based on favorable currents. I stand before you, a teacher for 40 years, because of public spending. Lots of taxpayers invested in me. I couldn't have done it on my own. When I got the position in Hamilton Wenham 36 years ago, I thought, well, I don't know anybody there. I actually didn't even know where Hamilton was at the time. And so I probably got the job because I was the best qualified. Actually, I didn't get the job. Somebody else got it and then backed out. But when I look back on it, I had 4 years experience. And 4 years is just about right. You get somebody who has a little experience but doesn't have bad habits. If I had 8 or 12 years experience, I may never have gotten the job. So we have to be conscious of the currents in our achievements. It's hard to recognize the advantages we have to make accomplishments possible. It's even harder to recognize the difficulties of those advantages. It isn't fair for us to judge others without understanding what they've been through. Some of you have suffered tragedies and setbacks, whether it be the loss of a loved one, dealing with Alzheimer's, or your own illnesses. You know that others can't quite comprehend your situation. We all need to remember that when we're accomplishing things in life, other people may have more difficulties. They may be swimming against the current. Third, empathy. Empathy is a key to reduction in violence in the world, according to Steven Pinker. Some of you might be thinking, yo, you're a history teacher and you just said there's a reduction in violence? Well, have you heard of World War I and World War II? Actually, I have. I've read about them. But I thought the same thing when I went to read this book, like this can't possibly be true, but I'm convinced. The amount of violence per 100,000 people has been going down, and it's at the lowest level, or one of the lowest levels, in the history of the world. I know it's controversial. But suppose the rates of death from war are actually lower. Pinker says it's partly due to empathy. Reading literature, trading with others, being educated. The ability to see other people as humans is a big factor in reduction of violence. Empathy is a key factor in alleviating poverty. My crack team of researchers, I call them Team O'Reilly, this is Siobhan and Christy, found that poverty rate is dropping in the world, shown by a rising Human Development Index. Nevertheless, there is still grinding poverty, human slavery, sex trafficking, and oppression in the world. Many of you have been involved in charitable work and missions in other countries. Others have been helping your neighbors right here on the North Shore. You set a great example for us and help alleviate suffering in the world. But empathy is also personal. Think of someone who has wronged you. It hurts. Maybe a friend betrayed your confidence. Did you tell the person off? Give them what for? If we have empathy, we should try to understand that person who has hurt us. Why did the person act that way? Now think of someone you have wronged. Maybe you gossiped about someone, pass gossip along. We hurt people too sometimes. Sometimes consciously and sometimes from thoughtlessness. My advice is to stay away from gossiping. Be careful about conversations involving we, they. If they would just stop. They are trying to make our lives miserable. I'm personally ashamed when I'm involved in gossiping. I think we all struggle with it. So if we're no better, if we're all created equal, then we should forgive those who hurt us. Richard Stearns writes about Margaret, a woman in northern Uganda. Her friends were hacked to death in an attack. She was pregnant, so the commander said not to kill her. Rather, he ordered the soldiers to cut off her ears, nose, and lips. About a year later, she saw the commander and was traumatized. Counselors worked with Margaret to help her cope. Meanwhile, other counselors worked with the commander. Eventually, counselors arranged for the two to meet. He asked for forgiveness, and she gave it. They took a photograph of her standing next to the commander, smiling without lips. He didn't deserve forgiveness, just like we don't deserve it sometimes. If she can forgive, why can't we? Why can't we seek to understand, to empathize, rather than to condemn? So, my young friends, as you and I go off to the next phase of our lives, remember these 3 pieces of advice about the human side of critical thinking. Identify your prejudices, be aware of that hidden brain, be humble, you know better or worse than anyone else. Have empathy, try to understand others and forgive them when they hurt you. There is only one you. You are unique, and you make a difference. Make it a positive difference. You go with all of our very best hopes and wishes.
on behalf of the class of 2013, I would like to once again thank you for attending this year's Candlelight ceremony. My name is Arthur Hayden, and I am the president of this year's graduating class. Hamilton-Wenham Regional High School is truly an exceptional place. The teachers, infamous for their relatable attitudes and closeness to the student body, also know how to challenge both academically and intellectually. And the students, in turn, embrace what is offered them and build lasting bonds with faculty as well as their classmates as they ascend to great heights. This is true for all Hamilton-Wenham students. However, the class of 2013 has some characteristics that make us strikingly unique. As the class president, I have an interesting perspective on the dynamics of our grade and how we perceive ourselves in comparison to how we are perceived by others. The graduating class last year, the class of 2012, was a very successful class. Very active in their community, plenty of awards, great athletes, and they knew it. So their favorite thing to do was tell you just how great they were. The class of 2013 has been tremendously successful as well, establishing a reputation in the school and the community as an exceptional group of young men and women through both their accomplishments and their personalities. But they also might be one of the most pessimistic graduating classes in decades. You see, if you ask the class of 2013, a substantial percentage of them would say that their class is boring and/or void of passion. But I know better, because I've been watching for years as this class has grown closer and lifted each other up when we need it most. At times this year, I'll admit, I struggled to motivate myself and came into school with a negative attitude. But every day when I came into homeroom, or when I walked down the hallway and one of my classmates said hello to me or just smiled, I was slowly but surely lifted up. I watch and see things like this happen on a daily basis. Students supporting their peers even when they aren't exceptionally close friends. The class of 2013 doesn't know the kind of compassion it is capable of, mainly because it's second nature to them, but I've seen it. Their dedication to each other and the sense of community amongst this class is truly unique. If you only leave this ceremony with one message, make it this one. This year's graduating class knows how to take care of its own. So to my classmates, do not sell yourselves short. You are capable of so much more than you realize. Your capacity for love and friendship is remarkable and will serve you well wherever you go. Once again, thank you all for attending this evening and supporting this tremendous class. Good night and drive safely.